Well, hey folks, Relaunching with Jim Ritlin. This is a countdown of 10 great things that Impact Wrestling did from 2004 to 2009. A lot of you may know that I watched Impact Wrestling for over a dozen years until the company had finally burned me one too many times and I turned it off. And I haven't watched it regularly since. I've kept up on it. I know that they've had some trials and tribulations, a lot of rebranding, and their current rebranding seems to be working really well. And I hope it does. I'm not able to review it, and I'm not going to devote my time to watch it because simply I do not have the time reviewing New Japan, reviewing WWE, and having my full-time job. I'm not able to devote the time to it. But I wish nothing but the best. I hope the brand continues to grow and is back to the level it was even a decade ago in being a super viable alternative to WWE and wrestling companies in general. More companies mean, more viable companies mean that the talents can go where they need to go, ply their trade, and have fun and earn a living and entertain the fans. So if you're an Impact Wrestling fan, current Impact Wrestling fan, and you're watching this and you think I'm going to hate on the product, not going to do that. I will be doing a flip side of this countdown of 10 things they did not do well from 04 to 09, but that one's going to be a little more difficult to figure out. Because, yeah, there's some things that they didn't do all that well, and you could say that about WWE, especially from 04 to 09. But this is going to be about the positive side. So let's go with this. And thank you guys, by the way, if you are a current Impact Wrestling fan watching this. No hate here. If you guys love that and it's your brand, support and cheer your hearts out, and I hope they succeed. Anyway, so number 10, hardcore stuff. Like Sabu and Abyss having the barbed wire massacre, which was pretty damn cool. The one with Abyss and Judas Messias, less so. That wasn't really all that great. But like the Monsters Ball matches. The Monty Brown Raven and Abyss one from Victory Road 04 wasn't the best. It was good, but it wasn't the best. But then once it started to become a mainstay of Bound for Glory, Sabu, Jeff Hardy, Rhino, and... Sabu, Jeff Hardy, Rhino... I forget who the other guy was. God damn it. Abyss. I think Abyss was actually in there. Yeah, Abyss would have had to have been in there. It was weird because Abyss is one of the best guys that they had, and he really got booked as shit in the last number of years. Except for the Decay, that kind of stuff was pretty cool. But then you had 2006, you had that one, I believe it was Raven, Brother Runt, and Abyss, and I want to say somebody else was in there. And then you had tag team ones and stuff like that. And, Full Metal Mayhem, but Monsters Ball and that kind of stuff. That kind of hardcore stuff was really damn cool, and I really love that stuff. Full Metal Mayhem was some great stuff too, featuring some great tag team action. I believe in 2008 had a Monsters Ball where Abyss got set on fire is when he was teaming with Matt Morgan. And then you had, I believe it was Full Metal Mayhem where British Invasion and Team 3D captured the tag titles, the respective tag titles and stuff like that, which were pretty cool. That was some good stuff. But yeah, there was a lot of hardcore stuff, and they'd done other hardcore stuff besides that. But those are some matches in particular I go back and watch and really enjoy. Even with some of the headshots. The headshots still make me cringe. I do always like how Impact did stay TV-14 and went to more of an adult audience. So that is one thing I will give them credit for. While WWE went to the PG format in 2008, Impact stuck with TV-14, and that was part of the reason why, for a number of years, their product really should have been watched a whole lot more than WWE. Even though WWE is the big brand, Impact was doing a lot of good shit, even with the bad shit they had, having Russo involved, because having Russo ever involved in your creative is a bad idea. But now we go to number 9, Team 3D's, the Dudleys, Rebirth. And I'm going to talk about a few talents that they did here. I'm not going to talk about Jeff Hardy, because Jeff Hardy's first Impact Wrestling run wasn't all that great. But Team 3D, they were not used all that well in their last year in WWE. It was around Survivor Series 04. They were involved with, it was Survivor Series or Armageddon of 04. It was one of the two. They were used there, and then they were just sent home. And then they were brought back for the ECW One Night Stand 05 rebrand, or the one show. And then they were released from their contracts, or they mutually agreed. I don't really know, and I don't really care. Impact made a smart move scooping them up. They had some great feuds with, I believe, with America's Most Wanted, but also with Motor City Machine Guns. Their feud with Beer Money, tremendous. Their feud with LAX, I like LAX. Some of the stuff was a little bit silly, a little bit gimmicky, because Russo was booking, but or at least I believe so. But their feud with Beer Money in particular is one that I really enjoyed. And yeah, then you go on to when Bully Ray was able to have his, Bubba Ray was able to have his, Bully Ray gimmick and, run and everything. And a lot of people forget Devon was TV champion for a while and defending it weekly and having some pretty good matches. And then they just forgot about the TV title altogether. But their run as Team 3D, it revitalized them and helped add even more to the great tag division that I will get to a little bit in this countdown. Team 3D was great. Team 3D was great for Impact Wrestling. And they were good for Impact Wrestling. Impact Wrestling was good for them. It did a lot of good for both parties. Number 8, Kurt Angle's rebirth. One could argue that maybe Kurt should have taken a little bit more time to get his demons in order, because he was run down and everything and this kind of stuff in WWE. It was either that he didn't want to go to rehab, or he was so run down and they wanted him on a full-time schedule and he wanted on a part-time schedule. You're never going to know the full story, but the bottom line is Kurt and WWE parted ways, and then he came to Impact Wrestling. I would argue for a number of years had a better run than he had at points in his WWE run. Now, he obviously had the landmark grand matches on big stages a little more in WWE because of the spots he was featured in. But from till about 2010, Kurt was featured as pretty much a top-tier guy. And then he was featured in main event spots and this kind of stuff, and had runs after that. But from like 06, he came in with all the buzz in the world. That feud with Samoa Joe was great. OK Lockdown 08, they waited too long to put the title on Samoa Joe, and I talked about that. That was a Which Was Worse, I believe, episode 3, where I compared CM Punk and Samoa Joe's title reigns, respective title reigns that happened almost around the same time. And I will be doing more Which Was Worse shows later on in the year, so we'll watch out for those. But Kurt's rebirth, he looked revitalized. And he was able to work a lighter schedule because Impact wasn't running house shows nearly as much, and whenever they did, they weren't running nearly as much as WWE. Fortunately, he got his demons in order. He was able to have about 10-year run in Impact Wrestling, and then came back to WWE. No harm, no foul. He did everything he could for Impact Wrestling. Impact did a lot of shit for him too, and Kurt was reborn there. And no, that's not a pun on my, username. Kurt was reborn there and did a ton of shit for Impact. And Impact did a ton of shit for him. It was really nice to see Kurt have that second half of his career. And, even a longer half than he had in WWE. Number 7, the Main Event Mafia. Speaking of Kurt Angle, Scott Steiner, Kevin Nash, Sting, and Booker T formed the Main Event Mafia. Some legends that were going to take it to the young guys. I like the Main Event Mafia. I thought the Main Event Mafia was pretty damn entertaining. Despite the fact Booker seemed to enjoy what he was doing, but also didn't seem to really want to be there. He was just there to collect a paycheck. Is what it is. I don't really care. Him and Scott Steiner were entertaining. Scott Steiner in particular, because Scott Steiner is insane. Nash at that point was on the outs with the company. I think he was there for another year, and that was about it. Sting, that was right about the middle of his run, because I think actually he was there till about early 2014, so it was right about the middle of his run. I liked the Main Event Mafia. I thought the Main Event Mafia was entertaining. I thought the music was pretty, catchy and everything, the theme. They were a group that I think really could have run a whole lot longer than they did. They formed in Bound for Glory 2008, and I don't even think made it fully until Bound for Glory 2009. I mean, well, they did, but they were really a shell of what they were, because Sting had left the group. I think Kurt had turned babyface soon after that. Booker left the company. Scott Steiner was still there for a bit, and then I think left. It was very odd. It was a group that I wish had gotten a little more mileage. I think if they had been able to keep people under contract, could have had a 2-year run. But at the point where it was like 2009, what happened around Bound for Glory 2009? Oh yeah, Hogan came in. Good job. But the Main Event Mafia was very entertaining. Had some really good feuds. I really like the Main Event Mafia versus the Front Line, the TNA Originals, that kind of stuff. That was good stuff. And then number 6, meaningful pay-per-views. Bound for Glory. I would argue that some of the Bound for Glories are better than some of the WrestleManias during that time, like 05 to 09. Maybe not some of the matches. Some of the matches might have been kind of shit, but you can get some shit matches on WrestleMania, and they were certainly better than the SummerSlams. I mean, 2009 SummerSlam was pretty good. 8 was okay. 5, 6, 7 weren't all that great. 2005, 6, and 7, that is. And a lot, I mean, some secondary pay-per-views, it's not that WWE wasn't delivering some good product and everything, but meaningful pay-per-views, TNA, well, Impact Wrestling, but TNA at the time, were delivering banger pay-per-views. The talent were just going balls to the wall and everything, whether it was tag team action, X Division action. When they brought the knockouts in, they brought more women in right around Bound for Glory 2007. When they started doing that stuff, they added a lot of layers to their pay-per-views. Sometimes they were a little bit cluttered. And sure, maybe them doing 12 pay-per-views a year wasn't the best idea. They probably should have stuck with 6. I get why they were doing 12. They were, trying to compete with Vince, but also trying to, give their talents the most opportunities so maybe they could make some money. And some of the pay-per-views didn't work, but you're going to have that happen in any company. A lot of their pay-per-views meant a whole lot, and I can go back and watch some of those pay-per-views a lot more than I can WWE pay-per-views. Hence why, when Impact Wrestling did their insane brown bag special, when they were adding extra DVDs, t-shirts, and stuff like that to the thing just to clear out the warehouse, I bought up a bunch. I own like probably, I would say, close to 50. And I'm really happy about that. In fact, I might at some point, well, you can check out the brown bag unboxing videos if you would like. They're in my assorted playlist. You'll have to scroll down a bit. But I might actually show at some point all the DVDs that I have on a video. But anyway, their pay-per-views were more meaningful a lot of times, even though some of the undercard matches weren't great or greatly hyped. People would deliver because they wanted to make the company work. And it showed. And it entertained the fans a whole lot. And it started drawing some bigger crowds, not just at Bound for Glory, but at other pay-per-views. Number 5, X Division mainstay. A lot of people are surprised the X Division is not number 1. Well, I have a reason for why I put at number 1 what I did. X Division absolutely deserves a lion's share of the credit. The Alex Shelley, Johnny Devine was also great. He's forgotten about. Jerry Lynn, Low Ki, AJ Styles had some great matches. Of course, you got Chris Sabin, Alex Shelley, Motor City Machine Guns. I'll get to the tag action here in a little bit. Various others and everything. Christopher Daniels, Samoa Joe, various others. I'm sorry if I forgot. There's a ton of X Division talents. They had Roderick Strong at one point. They had Austin Aries, and he later came back as Austin Starr. They had a lot of really, really good, hungry young talents that were delivering fantastic matches. The match with AJ Styles and Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels and Samoa Joe, Christopher Daniels and AJ Styles, including the 2 Iron Man matches they had in 05, Against All Odds 05, and Battle for Glory 05 respectively. Against All Odds ones is a little bit better, just a little bit. But there was some great shit in the X Division. The only reason it's number 5 is by 2008, 2009, it started to really get watered down. They weren't featuring them the best. Even though, you had, I believe, Sheik Abdul Pasir, Sean Navari. He did pretty well. There was some good stuff in it, and you had the whole, it's not about weight limits, it's about no limits. Hence why Samoa Joe was X Division champion at one point. And even Kurt Angle was X Division champion in a winner take all match, I believe, at Hardcore Justice 07. And delivered one hell of an X Division title match, when he defended all 3 titles at No Surrender the next month, faced Jay Lethal, and Jay Lethal beat him, reversed the ankle lock, and it was one of the biggest upsets in Impact Wrestling history. One of the best matches in Impact Wrestling history, I would argue, especially considering that Kurt had already, I believe, had already wrestled a match. I think he'd wrestled for the tag titles and that kind of stuff, and him and Sting were tag champions. And then you had Team Pac-Man get the victory. Good job. I know I said no hate, but that's just one of the things where it's like that will actually go on the worst, is using Pac-Man Jones. Nothing against using celebrities, but just using that piece of shit was a bad idea. But their X Division was just so fucking red hot for so many years. Jay Lethal and Christopher Daniels had a great match, Bound for Glory 2007. A lot of really good shit happened in Impact Wrestling, including number 4, a meaningful mid-card. Feuds like Bobby Roode and Eric Young, Went on a little bit long, but okay. The X Division was featured a lot in the mid card. Chris Harris and James Storm had a hell of a feud in 2007, ignoring the whole blindfold match at Lockdown 2007. But a great match, I believe it's Sacrifice 2007 the next month, and a great Texas Death match. A lot of stuff like, whenever you had Sting when he wasn't involved in the title picture, he would be involved in the mid card. There was a lot of really good mid card action and really good feuds where it's like, okay, I'm really invested in this shit. Even tag teams that weren't involved in the tag title pictures had some good mid card feuds. Second to none. And some of that stuff, the mid card worked really damn hard. Everybody wanted to work hard to make that company succeed. Number 3, tag team resurgence. At the time, look at some of the tag teams that WWE had in 04 to 09. They had some good tag teams, and then they had the Highlanders. Nothing against the people in the Highlanders. It's just it was a terrible gimmick. The Spirit Squad, please. Deuce and Domino. Deuce and Domino was like, what, 07? I think it was 07. And it was a good gimmick, but they were just used like shit. You had Rico and Rikishi at one point as tag champions, I believe in May or June of 04. That didn't go anywhere. And going back to the X Division thing, they were, when WWE was throwing around the cruiserweight title just onto anybody, even though Gregory Helms did the best he could with it. X Division was knocking it out of the park. Back to tag teams. America's Most Wanted, Triple X. That feud, they had that friggin' match where Elix Skipper walked the damn cage at Turning Point 04. That's the kind of shit that makes tag team wrestling great. And so America's Most Wanted. America's Most Wanted versus the Naturals was a great feud. The Naturals were forgotten tag teams. Andy Douglas and Chase Stevens, I believe. I always remember Andy Douglas. Chase Stevens seems to be a name I tend to forget, which is unfortunate because both are really good workers and really, really good in the ring. Motor City Machine Guns, Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. Beer Money, James Storm, Bobby Roode, Team 3D. Abyss and Matt Morgan weren't a bad tag team. They weren't a great tag team, though. When America's Most Wanted went heel, Christopher Daniels and AJ Styles when they were a team. The original LAX, Hernandez and Homicide, Homicide Hernandez, however you want to say it. I hated the 3 Live Crew, but it is what it is. That's pretty much because I don't really care for Brian James, former Road Dogg. At least as a wrestler. I'm not going to say anything as a person because I don't know the guy as a person. Didn't really care for 3 Live Crew, but there was always more good than bad in the tag division. The tag division, the tag titles meant a whole lot. Competition was fierce. Everybody worked hard. I mean, I know I've said that ad nauseum in this video, but that's the whole point of why I'm putting this era over in Impact Wrestling. I'm not saying that the current regime and the current talents aren't working hard, but this is the stuff I remember where I'm like, I'm locked into Impact Wrestling more than I am WWE because, oh God, you're seeing people actually work hard at what they're doing. And then you had the British Invasion come in later, and it's like, I love Beer Money. Beer Money was one of my favorite teams. Like, Rude and Storm were absolutely incredible. Team Canada, Rude and Eric Young were absolutely fantastic. They were a great team also. Team Canada is one of the forgotten stables. Scott D'Amore being D'Amore, I'm just going to say D'Amore, is a great, great manager, and there was just a ton of really good shit. I know there are tag teams I'm forgetting, and I apologize, but there's some great stuff. Kid Cash in Dallas, now Lance Archer, part of the Killer Elite Squad and stuff like that in New Japan. They were a great tag team. There's a lot of really good shit that was happening that people tend to forget about. And number 2, the usage of Christian Cage. Christian Cage, even. Easy for me to say. He was super over for a period of weeks in 2005, and he was over with Edge, don't get me wrong. He could have been used so much better in his first run or his first run, not in Impact Wrestling, but in WWE. And even in his second run, but more on that at some point. Right from the outset, when he came in made his debut, Genesis 2005, so November 2005, and he was on the Taboo Tuesday 2005. Was it Taboo Tuesday? Yeah, it was Taboo Tuesday. It didn't become Cyber Sunday until 06. He was there, I think, as he was either going to be a tag partner or like somebody to face the Intercontinental Champion. I don't quite remember. And he was there, and then his contract ran out, and he chose not to re-sign. He jumped, and he went to Impact Wrestling. And crowd popped. I popped, because I remember watching that pay-per-view live. That was a hell of a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed watching Christian Cage there. He not everything that he did was absolute gold, but they treat him like a fucking star. He was a 2-time NWA champion. Won it at Against All Odds 2006. Lost it in screwy fashion at Slammiversary 06, whatever. That's not his fault. And then won it again, I want to say it was either the December pay-per-view in 06. Actually, I think it was January 07. And then he held it till Sacrifice 2007 when they held it up and everything and all that stuff. And then, yeah, okay, you could say, like, by the last year, you had the Christian Coalition, and by maybe the summer, he wasn't being used the best. But for a period of years, he really was. And he was used a ton better than WWE would have used him if he had re-signed. He was treated like a goddamn star and showed that he could be a world champion. And he could play face or heel, because he was face at first, and then he turned heel in like 2000. I think it was Hard Justice 06. That was a August pay-per-view where he attacked Sting and stopped Sting from beating Jeff Jarrett. And then he feuded with Rhino. That match that they had at Bound for Glory 06 was great. The series of matches that they had where they played up the whole thing of Rhino having a head injury, and Christian and Rhino obviously having a really good friendship. You could tell that they went all out. It was a lot of fun. He could play face or heel, this kind of stuff. He was great. Honest to God, they used Christian Cage a hell of a lot better than WWE ever would have. And number one, you knew it was coming. The Knockouts division. Now, you could argue that by 2010-11, even though they had some great talents, that they weren't doing all that good. And yeah, they did some overly gimmicky matches. But Impact Wrestling brought these women in and turned them loose. Let them have fun. Gail Kim versus Awesome Kong is a landmark feud. Roxy Laveau, who's somebody that really should be remembered as being a great worker. Didn't really care for Angelina Love, just my personal opinion. Didn't care for Velvet Sky, just my personal opinion. But they were great as beautiful people. And they were great whether they had Madison Rayne with them or whether they had Lacey Von Erich with them. I mean, I'm saying they were great because Angelina Love and Velvet Sky were great at getting heat. And Christy Hemme even wrestled for a little bit. That didn't necessarily work out all that good. Jacqueline wrestled for him for a bit, but at that point she was getting a lot older. They brought Mickie James in. That was in 2010, though. They bring in Victoria, who was Tara, in 2009. And they had a whole lot of really great feuds. They even introduced Knockouts Tag Team Championships. Didn't go so well because people kept leaving. But the concept was a great idea. But here's the thing. They featured him in a really, really fun and very well done 10-woman gauntlet battle royal to determine the first Knockouts champion. And that was at Bound for Glory 2007. That was great stuff. And I always find it funny on that match. You can, unless they add it out on the DVD, you can always hear the referees say right to Gail Kim in plain view of the camera and right for the mic to hear, 1 minute, Gail. I mean, you get to hear mistakes like that all the time. That's just one thing that always sticks out in my mind as being a funny moment. Really, it's not really anything bad. But the Knockouts division. Yeah, there are a few I'm forgetting about and that kind of stuff. Maybe every single woman that they brought in weren't the best workers, but they allowed them to go out and be themselves. Create some good characters. Create some great shit. And for a couple years, they were really, really good. You know why? Dutch Mantel worked with them. And Dutch Mantel, while maybe not the best in-ring worker, knows his shit and really worked well with the women. He did for the Knockouts division what Finlay did for the WWE Women's division for a number of years. Even though WWE watered down their women's division and were still putting on putty matches and this kind of stuff. Sure, they had the makeover matches and that kind of stuff in Impact Wrestling, but at least the Knockouts division was treated with respect. A lot of the women were treated with respect. It's just a damn shame that the pay scale was so uneven. That's a whole nother rant for another day. I just wish that the women had gotten paid better. But Gail Kim and Awesome Kong were two that really set the bar on that. They had an incredible feud. Taylor Wilde, somebody that gets forgotten about. Sarita, Rosita. You know who Rosita is? Zelina Vega. That's where she started out at, in case you guys forget, or in case you guys wonder where she started out at. But anyway, that's what I gotta say. Those are 10 great things that Impact Wrestling did from 2004 to 2009. Let me know some things in the comments that you guys think that Impact Wrestling did really well. Favorite matches, feuds, that kind of stuff. I could always do another list of this. 10 more things that Impact Wrestling did that were great from 04 to 09. Also, I will be doing one at one point from 2010 to 2013, because that's going to be a whole lot of stuff where I'm going to focus on that. That's going to be the Hogan era. But anyway, let me know in the comments. Like, share, subscribe also. It's been Real Aussie with John Rittland, and I will see you soon.